Pharmaceutical industry is in the center of conspiracy theories. Unfortunately for our thriller-craving minds, the facts are more based on cold business logics rather than wish to conquer the world. My name is Barbara. I am an enthusiast of health economics, and in this video I will shortly discuss three things. What drugs do pharmaceutical companies develop? How much does it cost to develop a drug? And who eventually pays for it? Well, the answer is rather simple. They create what pays off, what the world is ready to pay for. So by no surprise, the pharmaceutical industry as of now is oriented more towards the problems of the developed world, such as cardiovascular problems, diabetes, cancer, depression, rather than to the problems of the developing world, such as transmittable diseases. A good example of it is the enormous amount that has been spent in the recent decades on the research of Alzheimer, because the company who will manage to find a truly effective medicine to treat this disease will take a huge share of market that is ready to pay for the effective treatment. Meanwhile, World Health Organization notices that out of all the money that is spent during 1 year on drug research, only 5% of it goes to the problems of the developing world. In the last 2 decades of the 20th century, 1,123 drugs were invented. Out of it, only 13 were dedicated to tropical diseases. Out of those 13, 5 came out of veterinary research, 2 out of USA military, and 2 were the modification of a existing medicine, which means that only 4 drugs were intentionally developed to address tropical diseases. Moreover, pharmaceutical companies are more interested into curing diseases rather than preventing them. At the beginning of the 21st century, the yearly sales of curative drugs reached 300 billion, while vaccines had only $5 billion. So no wonder why, when Ebola pandemic broke, we didn't have a vaccine ready yet, fully ready, because for pharmaceutical companies, these small projects are simply not interesting enough from the business perspective. Developing and manufacturing a drug has a very peculiar cost structure. There are huge expenses at the beginning, developing and researching for a drug, but once we have an approved drug, the manufacturing of a single tablet is literally cents. So what do we mean when we say huge expenses at the beginning? According to certain calculations, the development of a drug can cost around $2 billion. However, a big part of the community is doubting these calculations, because the pharmaceutical companies never let inside an outsider economist to research on the cost structure. Instead, they respond to surveys, and out of those surveys, scientists try to calculate the actual costs. Either way, if it's not $2 billion, it's still a big amount of money. And companies need to know that this risk, this investment will pay off. That's why we have a patent system, which means that once the company has created a drug, it will have a temporary monopoly. And monopoly means that they will set any price they want until the generics will enter the market. Generic is basically a copy of the originator, and it's much cheaper to produce it because the company doesn't need to do all the R&D that the originator did. The only thing it needs to do is to prove that their drug is equivalent to the originator. So naturally, once the generics enter the market, the prices of the drug drop. However, there is observed an interesting paradox in the market. Already before the generic entry, the sales of the patented drug start to decrease 1 year before. And after the generics enter, even though the price keeps on dropping of that certain drug, the total sales of the drug decreases. And that is explained basically by the reduced marketing activity from the originator. As they know that the profits will soon begin to drop, they stop marketing a certain drug, and as the marketing stops, so does the demand drop. Monopoly allows pharmaceutical companies differential pricing. Have you noticed in the context of COVID-19 vaccines that politicians are not talking about the prices of the doses of the vaccines? That is because they are not allowed to do so. Only by mistake and information has reached newspapers of the approximate costs of the COVID-19 vaccine. So, for example, European Union is paying around 12 euros for Pfizer, for a dose of Pfizer vaccine, while Israel is paying around 16 euros. The countries are not allowed to reveal the costs, the prices, because of the confidentiality agreements. Because as long as the different parties do not know the different prices, the negotiation power is on the side of a pharmaceutical company. Otherwise, Israel can say, why is European Union paying less? We want to pay less too, we will pay you less. Differential pricing allows to win different interested parties. The pharmaceutical company earns as much as it wants by charging the rich countries. The rich countries are able to get as much as they want as long as they pay. Meanwhile, because pharmaceutical companies has already earned from the rich countries, they can price less the poor and the developing countries. In fact, not once pharmaceutical companies have given away for free certain drugs to the very poorest of the countries. Because in this way, not only they look socially responsible, but they also do not reveal one of the most important business secrets. So what is the lowest cost that would cover the manufacturing costs? Either way, of course, countries do want to reduce the price as much as possible, and they do so by different mechanisms, for example, such as reference pricing. So imagine that a market enters a new drug for depression and it costs 150 euros per month. The existing drug costs around 100 euros. So the country says, we will pay the 100 euros and the difference will have to be covered by the patient. As the patient is price elastic, the lower is the price that he needs to cover, the more he will buy of the drug, and the other way around. So the drug company is interested to reduce the difference between the 100 and the 150. However, the real negotiation power, in my opinion, eventually lies with the pharmaceutical companies. Probably you have noticed that most of the drugs, first of all, appear in the United States. That is because there is no price control, no price regulation. So first of all, companies know that they will be able to recoup their profit there. And afterwards, they don't rush to enter other markets because they say, for as long as you are not ready to pay the amount I want, I will not rush to your market. I am exaggerating a situation slightly. However, the price setting and the negotiation part in the pharmaceutical industry, I think, is one of the most mysterious and at the same time interesting processes to the outsiders. Drugs do save lives. They prolong them and allow us to live it in a better quality. As the number of innovative drugs increases, the number of surgical procedures decrease because we simply don't need them anymore. However, certain business decisions that pharmaceutical companies make are worth to be questioned whether they are fully ethical, and that is to be done by us. Not once pharmaceutical companies have abused their dominant position in the market. Thus, countries, states, European Union, international organizations have to keep on monitoring the market and to assure fair rules to all the interested parties. Thank you for watching.